Known for his distinctive technique and signature round glasses, Ian Paice became a drumming legend in Deep Purple and beyond. As an exceptional virtuoso, he was the only member of the band, which underwent many changes over the years, who played on a string of multi-platinum albums. Thus, his contribution and significance are undeniable. Deep Purple are said to have set new standards for heavy rock bands, and much of the credit for this achievement belongs to Ian, whose style has become one of the most influential in rock. Inspired by jazz greats and the allure of glamorous Hollywood movies, this man formed an instantly recognizable style and became an icon for generations of drummers. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. As a child, Ian was rather seriously interested in the violin, but at 15, drums took over his heart and soul. This pursuit was largely influenced by glamorous motion pictures. Actually, my first instrument was the violin, but I very quickly found out that I'd much rather hit it rather than playing it. As a kid, I was always aware of the visual side as much as the sound. I started to watch old glamorous Hollywood movies, and there'd be some cool guy shooting up through a drum, and it fascinated me. Those things made me realize that drums were a very unique and exciting instrument. According to the future star, as a child, he was actively building his own units from improvised resources. At a very, very early age, I think about 11, I started trying to make my own drums. Biscuit tin drums, anything I could find. I even used to steal me mum's knitting needles. I mean, this went on for 2 or 3 years. In the end, his father bought Ian his very first set, but not his last. My old man was a musician. He was a piano player. Before I was born, he was professional. And then when we came along as a family, he gave it up and just did it for extra cash on the weekends. When he saw that I wasn't going to be stopped, he bought me my first kit. I was 15. It was a red glitter costing £32 and 12 pence and 6 pence, and it wasn't worth it. It was always breaking, and I hated the sound I was getting by the end. Recognizing his son's growing commitment, Paice's father bought him his first proper kit. It was an aquamarine pearl, a dark blue Premier. Later, inspired by Ringo Starr, Ian independently purchased a Ludwig kit. It was a dream come true, but one that came with installments, forcing the young musician to work for almost a year to pay it off. Today, Ian Paice is the only remaining original member of Deep Purple and the only one to have been present in all of the band's lineups. However, his entry into Deep Purple happened quite by chance. He and singer Rod Evans were playing in a club band called Memoirs, which was touring and releasing singles around Europe when, out of the blue, Evans decided to audition for Deep Purple. At this point, Deep Purple already had a drummer, Bobby Woodman. Paice therefore simply went along with Evans, not at all imagining he would be required to play. However, Woodman didn't particularly like Deep Purple's chosen musical direction, and the feeling was mutual. Conversely, Paice was instantly impressed by Blackmore's playing and the future Ritchie had mapped out for their sound. And so, after a brief audition, the very first Deep Purple lineup was good to go. The 1971 album, Fireball, was an absolute scorcher, but one that's often unfairly overlooked because of the misfortune of being sandwiched between two absolute monsters, in rock from 1970 and, of course, 1972's earth-shattering Machine Head, both of which unquestionably overshadow the rest of the band's discography. However, great tracks aside, Fireball also deserves attention for what's now considered to be possibly the first ever use of a double kick intro in the history of hard rock. The opening and title track of the album launches the listener straight into a trademark Paice drum pattern, of the sort that were later to become iconic trademarks of other great songs like Motorhead's Overkill and Judas Priest's anthemic Painkiller. It turned out that Ian initially tried to play the pattern in his head on just a single pedal. Despite managing to get the speed up to where he wanted it, the bass drum just didn't have that necessary attack you need in the mix with just one foot. It was then that his eyes searched around the studio before eventually falling on Keith Moon's Who drum kit nearby, and in particular, on his bass drum, which, he reasoned, they'd probably end up using as a way to inject much more power into the sound. Ian Paice has never been considered a technical drummer as such, but nonetheless, at the peak of his career, his skills behind the kit were nothing short of exceptional. Not surprisingly, his drumming inspired countless other drummers who have often openly acknowledged it, from Chad Smith, Red Hot Chili Peppers to Metallica's Lars Ulrich. Some of Paice's trademark technical flourishes subsequently became standard fare in heavier genres, including thrash metal and even grindcore. One of his trademarks were really fast hand and foot combinations. Delivering thunderous double kick drum fills custom-made for driving much heavier sounds. By all accounts, interviews, or whatever other musicians happen to say about the man, Ian Paice is widely regarded as one of the nicest people on the planet. Another major thing is that he's never bought into any of the interband dramas Deep Purple have had along the way, something of an achievement in itself when you consider he's the one constant throughout it all. He's also been careful never to have a bad word to say about any of his fellow band members, past or present. Instead, he's always found the time and the energy to do the odd drum clinic or cue and the sessions he's invariably mobbed at by fans during Deep Purple tours. Thanks to all the goodwill this has engendered towards him over the years, along with his stellar rock pedigree, Paice has managed to work and perform live with pretty much every major name on the rock and roll planet. Guys of the caliber of Brian May, Queen, Whitesnake, George Harrison, Bruce Dickinson, Gary Moore, and countless others. These were also far more than just your average, one-off concert collaborations or fleeting studio sessions. Paice actually played drums in Whitesnake albums over a 3-album period. He also famously cut an album with Gary Moore. In another lifetime, musically speaking, he gaped with the great David Gilmour. He played on Paul McCartney's 1998 album, *Run Devil Run*, and even on the very last Velvet Revolver album. Quite often overlooked is the fact that Ian Paice is right up there with very fastest drummers from his era. With single strokes, he's only ever really lost out, in terms of sheer speed, to Buddy Rich. Then there's the small matter of being able to match the legendary Dave Lombardo on a single pedal, an incredible feat. Even after all these years, he seems to retain all that youthful energy, as his drum solos, which are still blistering, perhaps testify. Although, these days it might be argued that they're less about speed and more about the feel, still not convinced. There's plenty of his 70s drum solos up on YouTube if you need convincing. Something that might well give Ian Paice's drumming abilities a run for their money is his incredible work ethic. When a minor stroke in 2016 forced Deep Purple to cancel 2 of their gigs, Paice revealed these were, in fact, the very first 2 he'd ever missed in the entire span of his career. We're talking 55 years on the road here, which makes this all the more unbelievable. But wait, there's more? Just 1 month after treatment, Paice was back on stage, playing. And let's not forget, at the time, Deep Purple were still regularly turning in 2-hour-plus sets most evenings. And this guy was 68 years old. Yup, legend. Asked for his tuppence worth on what's happening to the music industry these days, a typically forthright Paice remarked, "It's not good. It's a shame. When I look back, we had freedom. You could do lots of things. Nowadays, everything's commercial. Everything's kinda the same. The people running record companies are the people who used to design clothes. Where did that come from?" Next quizzed about the drummers of today, Paice laments, "You used to be able to tell one drummer from another. You know, they all had their own particular style and sound. Nowadays, well, they're okay, but that's it. Everybody sounds the same. There is no such thing as individuality. Just endless cliches and standards. Sad, really."